Welcome to the Grow Your Practice podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Chad Madden, owner of Madden Physical Therapy and Breakthrough. Join me each week as we dive into the best practices, systems, principles, tips, and tricks to help you grow your private practice. What's the number one single biggest mistake in marketing a private practice? In this episode, I'm going to share a personal story with you, and we're also going to take a look at what most private practice owners do that really cramps the results that they're getting within their marketing. It's commonly overlooked, and back in 2013, and this was before Breakthrough, in the early days when Carl and I had just met, started talking about marketing, he had done a survey within private practice physical therapy specifically. I think he surveyed about 300 practice owners and asked them the two questions. The first question was this: what is the single biggest waste of money that you've had in marketing your private practice? The second question was, what was the most successful thing you've ever done to market your private practice? And what he got back were hundreds of answers. And when he looked at the list of what was most successful and what was the biggest mistake or the biggest waste of money, those lists looked nearly identical. And the answers, included like patient newsletters were, for some owners, the most successful thing they've ever done. And at the time, for some owners, it was also the least successful thing they've ever done. Google, SEO was on there. Email marketing, print ads, billboards, TV, school sponsorships, t-shirts and mugs and other sorts of swag. They were on both lists. And we looked at this for quite a while, and we were talking it over one day. It took us about 3 months, 4 months to figure it out. But what we noticed is that 100% of the answers that were submitted as either the most successful thing the private practice had ever done in marketing or the least successful thing they had ever done, they were all media types. So as private practice owners, we have this knee-jerk reaction that when marketing doesn't work or it does work, we give 100% attribution to the media. And that's a major miss. And here's how Carl figured this out. For the owners that said that it was not successful, he asked them to see the marketing piece. So if it was a patient newsletter, if it was a postcard that they had mailed out, if it was an online ad or a banner ad at the time, if it was something that they were doing with SEO or Google, he asked to see what they had written. And what he found is that most of the time, the failed pieces focused on the clinician and how great they were and their certifications. And I mean, you've seen the bios, right? The typical bio is, grew up in this area, I went to school, I got my degree, I got these certifications, I really like working with this type of patient, and I'm married with kids, and I also like to kayak and hike and go fishing, right? Like we've all read those bios, you likely have one yourself, and a lot of the marketing was focused on the clinician, right? That makes us feel good when we're buying ad space, whether it is in direct mail, a billboard, or whether it's online. So that typically we will buy that, a focus on us. And that's a huge error because we're missing the most important thing, which is the mistake that we make. It is in messaging. We do not use words. We do not use a point of view of the person that we're trying to attract into our clinic. So huge miss, focus on media selection and not focus on messaging. When you do this the right way, when you put in the groundwork, and I'm going to give you one simple step of something that every single listener can do. If you have a private practice, if you're working with patients, if you're working with clients, that you can start doing this and put this in to your practice. When you have marketing that works, you're getting an ROI, right? If you're talking about going to your patient list, your ROI should be like 10 or 20x. Right? Huge return on that investment of, taking the time to send out an email, send out a patient newsletter, promote to your past patient list. If you're talking about cold traffic marketing, it's going to be somewhere between 1 to 5x, right? In terms of your ROI. So you're going to get a better ROI. You're going to be able to attract the person that you want to attract, right? A person that you want to work with, who's going to respect you for and trust you for the knowledge and expertise that you're bringing to the table. Somebody that's not going to waste your time. They're going to view you as the authority in whatever the area is. They're going to view you as the celebrity. They're going to view you as an expert before they even walk into your clinic when you do this the right way. And the other thing that can happen, which is pretty cool, is you can, to an element, go viral. Maybe it's not all across the US, maybe it's not across the world and internationally, but you can at least be known very well within your 5 or 10 mile radius around where you're operating in your clinic. So just this past week, I met with, so my wife is Stephanie. She has a friend. We'll, just to protect her anonymity, we'll call her Emily. Emily owns a business that is outside of physical therapy. She owns and private practice. She owns a gym. It's personal training, small group fitness. And I was talking with her, and she's trying to grow. She herself is full, right? So she is in little over 1,000 square feet, has this personal training gym, and now wants to grow and expand. And yeah, small business owner, and she's trying to market. And what she had said, I've read, I make recommendations constantly. I don't even think about it. Just, here's a book to read. Why don't you check this out? I love mentoring people, and I really try to focus my time on people that are resourceful. So I'll give them a book. If they go through the book and they read the book and they're having trouble applying it, that's a much better situation for me to invest my time with that person, because I know that they actually want to do it, versus the person that just says, please solve my problem for me. Right. That's a very difficult lift for me. And I tend to avoid that situation. So in Emily's case, well, she said, you told me about this book. It was $100 million Leads by Alex Hormozy. Many of you might know Alex Hormozy. This is the guy on YouTube with the long dark hair, has acquisition.com hat, and typically wears a nasal breathe right type strip. Yeah, and usually has a muscle shirt on and a flannel in almost every single video. Anyhow, his background is in personal training. And I said, I read this book, check it out. I think it'll really help you. She read it. And then she said, I also read $100 Million Offers, which was another Alex Hormozy book. So really cool. So she's swimming upstream. Great evidence. We sat down for an hour, and she said, I know all these things, but I don't know how to execute. I don't even know where to start. I'm overwhelmed. What should I do? So we started with, and I said, just pick a media. Actually, don't pick a media. Let's focus on your target market. Who is your target market that you're trying to attract? And she said, very similar to what we run in our practice, it's 45 to 65-year-old family oriented female. And, typically a mother, grandmother, wife, has children, taking care of her family. In her case, I said, what are the three biggest needs that this person, your ideal target market, your ideal customer, what do they have in common? And she gave hers a name. The fictitious name was Kathy. So we said, okay, what are Kathy's three biggest needs? Why does she want to come in for personal training? And Emily said, well, maintain weight is number one. Number two was, I want to keep moving. I want to be active. And number three is, I want to feel stronger, younger. So I said, great. Now, are they your words? Or are they Kathy's words? Right. And Emily was a bit taken back, and she kind of thought about it. And I said, is Kathy really thinking in her head, I want to maintain my weight? She's probably not using those words. She's saying something along the lines of, I don't want this is very frustrating that my weight keeps going up and down. I don't know how to control my weight. Right. She's thinking something like that. And we want to use the exact terminology, the exact words and phrases that Kathy is using. Kathy has a conversation going inside her own mind. She's talking to herself about her weight. We want to use the same language that Kathy is using. So, huge aha moment there for Emily. And the other things that kind of came out of that conversation is Emily was thinking, it's a certificate. She has to go get more education, of certification, or it was all about her own growth in order to help and find Kathy. And I was like, well, Kathy doesn't care about your certifications. Kathy cares about not having her weight go up and down. She doesn't want it. She wants to get off that roller coaster, and she just wants to maintain her weight. In your words, she wants to be able to, stay the same weight and just feel comfortable at that weight. She wants to feel younger and stronger. She wants to keep moving and stay active and not feel like she's losing out on life, right? So we have to think about what that person wants and start using words and phrases that person is using, our potential patient, our potential client is using and having going on in their head. So the solution in the end is we have to focus on messaging. And Robert Collier, I mean, this is a fairly old copywriting handbook. I think it was in the 1930s, it was written. I'm sure I have it somewhere on my shelf here, but he talked about the job of the copywriter, the job of the person creating the messaging is to hop into the conversation already going on inside the prospect. Prospect is a potential patient in our case. So that is what we want to do. The framework and how we think about doing this. There are really three big things that you can do in terms of figuring out messaging. Likely the conversation going on in your mind about your potential patient. Let's say there was a Kathy for your private practice who you wanted to attract into your practice for your services. How do we figure out how she's talking about? And let's say you want to roll out a pelvic floor program, right? And you're looking for your ideal customer, your ideal patient, who will name Kathy, has pelvic floor issues and you want to help her with that. So how does she talk about that? Well, there's a couple different ways that we can think through it. The biggest error, the pitfall, is that most of us, we violate the love languages, right? So if you know the five love languages, that book, five love languages are quality time, touch, gifts, words of affirmation, and I just blanked on the fifth one. But nonetheless, what most of us do is we use acts of service as the fifth. We communicate to others how we receive and process love. So, for example, words of affirmation. Very typical, yeah, very typical for men to be words of affirmation. I'll leave it at that. And my wife, Stephanie, is acts of service. So for years, I thought that like me giving her words of affirmation, right, which is my love language, was communicating to her. And it was not. It was not landing at all. And then I tried gifts, and then I, went through all five, and then we eventually figured out it was acts of service. And then, a classic example is anytime I go on a business trip or anything like that, I take half a day, one day before, after the trip, and there's something about me carrying out donkey and horse feed and alpaca feed and doing the animals and working around our little farmette that communicates love to her. I don't understand it, but that's not my love language, right? So, but I have to use her love language in order to communicate love to her. It's the same exact thing here when we're trying to attract a patient into our practice. We have to use their language. So, and not use our own. So we shouldn't be using clinician speak. And I'll give you some examples here in a second. So the first thing that you can do, and I took Emily through these three quick things in terms of how to find messaging, right? I promised you some action items here. This is three things you can do to improve your marketing today and improve your messaging and stop making the single biggest mistake that private practice owners make. Number one is Google. Google is amazing. You can Google any term. I would use a diagnosis that you want to attract. So let's say, you went with lymphedema or vestibular health or whatever it is, but you type a word into Google. If you scroll down slightly, right, first you're going to see that typically that Gemini AI generated definition. If you scroll down, there will be a little section that says people also ask. So Google is telling you what other people, what the other Kathys of the world are typing into Google about that topic. This is a huge shortcut for you, right? So, I mean, one of the most valuable things that we can ever offer to our potential patients is answer questions that they are already asking themselves, right? So, if you've ever read Scott Galloway's book, um, oh, I just blanked on the name of it. It's The Four Horsemen, I think, is what it's called. But he talks about Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google and the amount of data that they have. I think Amazon or Apple might be in there as well. But nonetheless, he calls Google the new confessional, the modern day confessional, because people will type things into Google that they won't even share in a confessional, I think is how he puts it. So, they wouldn't share it with their most trusted advisor, their priest, or whoever that type of figure it is. They're willing to share stuff in Google, type things into Google that they won't even share with their closest friends and family. Pretty good way to think about that. And that is very true.
Attention private practice owners, are you ready to thrive in 2025? Join us for State of PT, a free virtual event on February 27th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern. Spend the day with industry experts discussing the new rules of private practice growth in 2025. Secure your complimentary spot now at stateofpt.com or click on the link in the description. Now, back to the episode.
So Google will give you 4 questions in lay terminology, exactly what people are typing in, that are the most common, at least in your area. So that gives us a really good thing. The great thing is the second that you click on one of those questions, you also get 2 or 3 more. So if you just click on those 4, very quickly you're going to have 15 to 20 questions of how people are talking about whatever the diagnosis, whatever the problem is. So if you search in, here, I'll do this. You won't be able to see it, but I'll talk it out. So we just go to Google and I type in shoulder pain. And so first I get the AI Gemini overview. Gemini is the Google product AI. 4 questions are: what can cause shoulder pain without injury? What to do when you have shoulder pain? How can I tell if my shoulder pain is serious? How to diagnose shoulder pain at home, right? As a clinician, you could probably answer all of those with your eyes closed. You're probably doing it every single day. People are asking you questions as they come through the clinic, and you're just not really placing any value on it. It's very valuable to that patient, right? Or that potential patient. So if we click on one of those, we open up a few more. And the next one is, what is a red flag? So this is very Google-like. What is a red flag for shoulder pain? I'm reading that verbatim. Why did my shoulder just randomly start hurting? So this is what people are typing into Google, and you can use it to your advantage to see how people are talking about and asking about their problem. That's number one. Number two is I'll typically Google testimonials. So we have shoulder pain in Google right now. I'll type in shoulder pain testimonials. And yeah, I mean, we get tons of stories, patient experiences, and we can look, Reddit comes up right away, which is great. So you can see how people are talking about and writing about their pain. Now, a special note on patient testimonials, what's good and bad. So a good testimony, and well, let's call it great and nice. All right. So a great testimonial is one that shows the transformation. So before I came in to Madden physical therapy, I couldn't sleep through the night without, I would wake up every night with shoulder pain, something like that. After physical therapy, this is the best I've slept in years. I'm able to sleep through the night without any pain at all. In fact, I can go through my entire day and my shoulder doesn't bother me. I'm completely pain free. So it's showing that transformation. That's what we're looking for in a great testimonial. A nice testimonial isn't really all that valuable to us. So it'll say something like, I came in uh, to see Dr. Dan. He worked with my shoulder. He gave me some strengthening exercises, and I love the hands-on physical therapy, and I feel a lot better. Everybody was nice. I highly recommend Madden PT. Right? That is not helping us in any way. We're looking for that transformation. So not all testimonials, not all Google reviews are created the same. We're looking for that transformation, especially if we want to nail the messaging, right? That's what we're talking about, is not making this big mistake, this big pitfall, avoiding the pitfall. How do we do that? We have to find good messaging. And the final place I would look for really good messaging is, we call this a killer testimonial machine. This is something that I've taught here at Breakthrough for the last 10 or 12 years. And essentially it's this: every single patient that we have come through, and we've been doing this for, I don't know, 18, 20 years, something like that. But every single patient that comes through who makes it to their last visit, their graduation, we call it the graduation visit, day of discharge, whatever you want to call it. You take your measurements, right? On that day, when the patient comes in, we hand them a sheet on a clipboard and it says my PT story. And it says, please tell us about your physical therapy story, and focus on what you couldn't do before you started and what you can do now. That is the prompt. We have that on a simple sheet. The person handwrites it, right? This isn't a Google review. We ask for those as well, and we have literally thousands of those. But we ask everybody to handwrite their story. And so they'll take a few minutes, they'll do that. Then we get into the last visit, objective measurements, and we complete the rest of that final visit, talking about their goals and how they met their goals and everything else. But we grab that story. Here's why this is key. Anything that I've ever written for shoulder pain, back pain, hip, knee, anytime we're designing a new funnel like pelvic floor, vestibular, balance and dizziness, neck pain and headaches, whatever we're doing, whatever we're designing, I always grab about 30 testimonials. And I mean the great testimonials, not the nice testimonials, because you're going to get a little bit of both. And so we grab the great ones, we're looking for the transformation, and then I go through with a highlighter and I highlight key words and phrases that are common within the testimonials. Here's why that's a big deal. And I'm going to give you a little discernment here. If you and I, as clinicians, if you're a clinician, we're talking about, let's say, back pain, and I first figured this out in like 2008, 2009. But most people, most clinicians will say low back pain, right? We see that in the literature all the time. It's in our journals. Low back pain, three separate words, low back pain. When we talk with a patient, they almost never say low back pain. They say back pain or they say lower back pain. They don't say low back pain. So when we're using our messaging, and this is how important this is, we have to make sure that we're using the language of the person that we're trying to reach, right? And yeah, so that is key. And if we want to take that a step farther, here in central Pennsylvania, most people confuse their sciatica with SI joint, right? And you can see how a layperson would typically very much confuse that. So they'll say, it's my sciatic. Well, guess what we talk about? We talk about this difference of what the SI joint is. Like most people here in central Pennsylvania say my sciatic, right? Right. We literally call it out in our messaging. And it's like you may be saying sciatic, but here's what you really mean. You really mean SI joint. And this is the SI joint. It's beside your tailbone on either side. And here, you likely have pain getting in and out of a car, sitting for long periods, crossing one leg over the other, rolling over in bed at night, right? So, and then we talk about the symptoms that they're likely having, and we use their terminology. Another example is you and I typically say ascending, descending stairs. So the average clinician, when they think about using lay language, they'll say going up and down stairs. I haven't found this to be true everywhere, but at least here in Central, people will, so they won't say ascending, descending stairs. That's clinician language. They won't say going up and down stairs, which is definitely more it's more basic than the clinician language. What they will say is doing stairs when I'm doing stairs, or I can't do stairs. And again, that is something that really will take your marketing to the next level when you start using the language of the people that you're trying to reach. I pulled some references for this. The way that I've shared it in the past, and we're going to talk about. I'm going to give you some spiritual, religious references but I'm going to try to pull in everybody. So even agnostic or whatever. So you can view it as literature, you can view it as gospel or scripture, however you see fit. But in the Old Testament, Torah, Exodus, Moses and Aaron, the story there was Moses needed Aaron to communicate to get his message across, right? Because he himself was fearful that he was incompetent at speaking. And the reason that Aaron was brought in is because he understood how to communicate to people and to make sure. So again, importance of communication there. Yeah, I mean, we can do others. Nehemiah 8:8, Proverbs, Isaiah, lots of references there in the Quran, Surah Ibrahim. Speaking in their language, we did not send any messenger except in the language of his people, so he might make the message clear to them, right? So very, very effective communication requires using the language and cultural context of the audience. If you and I opened up tomorrow in Hungary, right? We're going to make sure that we're using the language of the community that is there, the people we're trying to reach. It would be insane to think that we can use the English that I'm using here in central Pennsylvania, and that's going to translate over into Hungary, right? That is not, and I'm going to be able to communicate with all of Budapest. Like that is not how this works. It's the same exact thing, but we frequently think, well, we speak English, that person speaks English, therefore the words that I'm using, they should understand. It's a very naive and egotistical way of thinking that you're going to be able to have effective marketing. That's again, it's not how it works. Take the time to understand the language of the person of Kathy that you're trying to reach. Yeah, lots of other ones in here. Buddhist reference was the parable of the burning house, where a father sees his children playing inside a burning house. To get them out, he tells them about the wonderful things outside, using their interest to persuade them to leave, right? And speak in terms of what your audience values to draw them to the truth. They likely are not valuing your certifications or your license or your special education, right? That's what you and I value as colleagues, as clinicians. That's not what our target market values. So lots of examples there. Really focus on the transformation. I gave you three things here in the framework, but just to recap from the beginning, we're talking about what's the biggest mistake in marketing your private practice. We also covered how to avoid that pitfall, how you can remedy that, how you can put yourself ahead of, I'm going to say it's 98% of other practices by doing this the right way. We talked about that survey that Carl did back in 2013 of 300 private practice owners and how all owners, 100% of answers blamed media type, and nobody said, well, I had bad messaging. Right. Nobody did that. The opportunity of what happens when you line this up the right way, where your marketing is aligned, you have market message media alignment, you're doing marketing that works, you're getting an ROI regardless of your target market, you're attracting more people, you have the potential to go viral, at least in your community, you're developing authority, celebrity expertise, not only for yourself, but your other clinicians. I shared the story of Emily, who's small group fitness and personal trainer, and the struggles that she was having in spite of, swimming upstream and reading the marketing books and where do I start and how we started with messaging. And then I gave you three different ways in the framework to how to figure out messaging for whatever it is that you're trying to attract, regardless of the diagnosis. We talked about using Google, and people also ask, we talked about Googling patient testimonials, even if they're not of your own service, just to grab the language of how people talk about their transformation. And then we also talked about the killer testimonial machine, how you can start collecting what your patients are saying about your treatment and the transformation they're having with a very simple prompt. And it's really two sentences and a single sheet of paper on their last visit. We talked about the importance of grabbing 20 or 30 of those testimonials anytime that you're crafting new marketing content, regardless of whether you're marketing to your past patient base or you're going the other end, completely cold traffic, highlighting the words and phrases that you're then going to use in your own marketing messaging. We gave you some examples there. We also talked about how you can discern between great versus nice testimonials. The final thing I'll leave you with is this. Not exactly sure how I'm going to do this, but I do have this sheet that I use in my office that all of our therapists use. And now I think we have like 3,000 other practices are using this as well. We call it the killer testimonial machine. I wrote about it in Killer Marketing Secrets as well, but I'll leave a note with a template of how you can download that, make it your own. I think we even have a little permission to publish line at the bottom. Huge disclaimer. I don't know where you're practicing. Make sure that you're compliant with your own practice act and licensing laws, etc. So, but I'll leave that for you, and we'll get a note for that in the show notes. Otherwise, hope you very much enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody. See ya.